I'm your daddy.
I can be smart when it's important.
I'm your daddy. I'm
sorry to this
I'm your daddy.
Welcome to Daddy Dailies, a podcast hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films. On a film set, dailies are sent out after a shoot day so you can see the work in progress. Daddy Dailies are conversations that go behind the scenes so you can see what work went into the process and be better armed to succeed in the industry. Daddy Dailies, hosted by Not Your Daddy's Films.
Welcome back to Daddy Dailies. I'm Vika.
I'm Courtney.
And we're your hosts for today and two of the founders of Not Your Daddy's Films. Laura Jean Shannon, or LJ, as she is known by her peers, is a specialty costume designer with a focus on superheroes and other sci-fi and fantasy characters. She brings her knowledge of unconventional designs and construction principles to specialty character development in film and TV projects from the course of her 30-plus year career. It always makes me think of Project Runway when I think of like unconventional materials and stuff like that, which gets me
Great show.
Very excited. Along with her amazing teams, LJ develops practically built, mechanized, illuminated, and fully functional creations, which is so cool for an actor. LJ serves as the superhero costume designer and associate producer on Amazon's hit shows The Boys and Gen V, as well as the highly anticipated origin story Vought Rising. Her most recent work includes the robots on critically acclaimed Murderbot, as well as specialty characters in Red One. Collaborating with director Jake Kasdan and star Dwayne Johnson. Again, she did costume designing for the smash hit Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, one of my personal favorites, and the forthcoming third installment of the Jumanji franchise. Shannon's other film credits include Iron Man, Elf, Chef, Zathura, directed by Jon Favreau, Two Guns, directed by Baltazar Kormaker, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, an iconic film, directed by Edgar Wright, of course, Requiem for a Dream, directed by Darren Aronofsky, and many more other specialty supersuit costumes designed shows by Shannon include Black Lightning, Titans, Doom Patrol, Superman and Lois, and Stargirl. The list goes on. There's Good Girls Revolt, Philip K. Dick, Electric Dreams, the pilots for Preacher and Future Man. And Laura Jean is a voting member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and the Television Academy, an honor she takes very seriously come Oscar and Emmy time. She holds IATSE membership on both coasts with the Costume Designer Guild Local 892 in LA, the United Scenic Artists Local 829 in NYC. LJ Shannon enjoys working all over the globe and calls a farm in central New York her home, which she shares with her wonderful family, human and furry and feathered.
Yay.
Yay! Welcome to Daddy Dailies!
Thanks, guys. Sorry that was so wordy, but
No,
that's what
it's
happens when you've been
fantastic.
working for over 30 years in the industry, I guess.
Truly,
I mean,
yeah.
Unbelievable. We were talking, was it this morning or yesterday, of like, I don't know where we begin. It's like there's just so much that we want to talk about. And we've been waiting for so long to be able to talk to you.
I know you
It's
guys
fascinating.
forever. I'm so
Yeah,
glad
a
to
long
find
time.
you
Yes,
here.
thank you.
Well, I think we can start with the specialty, right? Like a lot of times we hear that you have to show people what you can do. Like those with the hiring power don't necessarily have the imagination to be like, oh, you want to direct action. Have you done action before?
Mhm.
And in your case with this unique skill set of like being able to design, The Boys is a perfect example, all these unique suits that are fully functional. How did you start and how did you find that specialty? Like, did you have to do it on your own before someone was like, yes, she's the person who we want?
That's a great question, and I'm going to go super deep and far back
Okay.
with
Love
that,
that.
because I've always been a geek. And when I was a little girl, and my brother, who's 6 years older than I am, and I went to see Star Wars when it came out 13 times in the theater, or was it 16 times? It was a lot of times. It was a lot, double digits.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't get enough of that innovative, kind of storytelling
So
and
fresh.
character development and all of the creatures and costumes and just sort of world building just cracked open this part of me as an artist, which I already was, I think, at birth. Like, that sounds so like obnoxious, and it took me a really long time to not feel like I had, like imposter syndrome. But I truly did have an artist spirit when I came out of the womb. And so my parents were great because they got me all of the art books and, all of the sort of schematics that I could study of creature development, production design, costume design, all of the things that ultimately, I found my way to, were sparked at a really young age with me. And my brother's in the film industry as well, and my best friend. And so he's a director of photography and a gaffer. And I was able to visit him when I was in college and realize that film was a place where I could be an artist and make a living, which are two things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fine artist in the respect of I could never see myself being sort of motivated enough to do fine art that I don't actually think I'm good enough to do anyways in a studio by myself. I really wanted to have a collaborative art form that I could do with others that has to do with humanity and storytelling and character development.
Yeah.
And so my career has been vast in terms of not pigeonholing myself in any one direction, and certainly tapping into your question of how do you become a specialty costume designer. It doesn't happen right out of the gate, nor did I want it to.
Yeah.
I wanted to have it be my end game. I think I always knew in my heart of hearts, that little geek within, wanted to have the opportunity and the good fortune, which I'm so blessed to have, of being able to create characters with others that, were other and that were deeply, unique and different and innovative. But to feel as if I had the right to do that and the chops to do that and the foundation to do that, I wanted to build my, sort of experience by doing so many other things as building blocks to get there. I've worked in the costume department / as a costume designer. The first film I designed, I think I was 25 years old. In indies, in New York City, back when indies were starting, in contemporary, in period. I've, driven my own truck, been my own supervisor, and, designed the costumes on tiny little movies, that led me to where I am now. But I also took little hiatuses where I went and worked for Doug Trumbull, who's the granddaddy of, special effects as we know it now. And I worked as a model maker on a crew for installments that he was doing, like Circus Circus, the ride in Las Vegas. And I was a sculpture major in college, so I was able to use my sculpting skills to build miniatures and things like that. And so all of these sort of stepping stones helped build the foundation for me to become a specialty costume designer, because the way I approach things is with sort of an engineering brain. Yeah, with my sculpture, model making, and exactly all of that sort of historical perspective. And then I had the really wonderful good fortune of starting to work with Jon Favreau on the very first film that he ever directed, which was called Made. And he brought me with him on all of his subsequent projects. Up until I became really busy on my superhero shows. And he went into a lot of, computer generated stuff, which didn't have a whole lot of costumes, though I did do Jungle Book with him. That's and cool. He just had a lot of faith in me and put me in the position of gaining experience with specialty stuff, be it on his projects or other sort of side projects with people he knew that were looking for costume designers who could, present that support. How
did you two meet?
We met in an interview for Made.
Oh,
and in fact, it's actually kind of a funny story, because I was on a vacation with my best friend, Terry, that is still my best friend from growing up. And she was getting married, and it was our last hurrah, and we were in Miami. And at the time, I actually had taken a hiatus, and I was working as a cook in a restaurant in Provincetown in Cape Cod. And so all I had with me was a duffel bag with some bikinis, and I had left my portfolio at my brother's apartment in Manhattan, and I got the call to meet with John and Vince Vaughn. And I had to call the trip short, and Terry and I just cobbled together like this random outfit of our like vacation clothes that I could put on. And I remember taking my portfolio out of what was my beach bag, and like sand came out with it,
Yeah,
like
that's
not a great look,
amazing.
but somehow or other I still got the job. And, the rest is history in terms of my relationship with
Yeah.
John and our collaborative history together, which has been so
Yeah.
amazing. I worked with a bunch of other directors, always sort of trying to, get those, reach for the stars and get those projects where there was a lot of specialty, custom design, and builds. So I got a lot of my experience practically with those things, and I would get jobs because I was a younger designer who didn't cost them as much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of the established costume designers would get phone calls, from studios or producers saying like, hey, we can't afford you. Who would you recommend? And I was lucky enough that enough of those designers sort of saw that I had it in me, that I was able to have those opportunities to
Yeah.
get larger projects where they couldn't afford the big designers. And
How did they know you? Like, is the community really tight knit? Like, how do you
that's
meet
a good
each other?
question. I mean, it's I really believe in the universe.
Yeah.
Maybe that sounds a little,
No,
it's
hoo-hoo,
beautiful.
but I
Yeah.
really genuinely believe that the universe kind of plopped me into where I am, because I didn't know I was going to become a costume designer. I didn't study costume design in school.
Yeah.
Which is good for everybody to know. You don't have to study it. You
Yeah.
can actually come from so many different places with so many different knowledge bases, and still have something to give.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that you learn every single day of your life if you're open to it,
Yeah.
from everybody in your life and every experience. I
Yeah.
learned from my dog, I learned from my PA, I learned from I learned from everybody. And that's sort of the beauty of being a human being on earth, is
Yeah.
being open to that sort of endless wealth of knowledge, and open to the possibility of where the universe is going to kind of direct you. And I've always stayed really open to that. And I think that the right people just sort of come into your life at the right times. Whether we met on an airplane.
It's just yeah.
You worked with a studio
Yeah.
executive who I'm close with on a bunch of projects. So
And we didn't know each other
right
then by the time when I
so
met
we
you.
came together,
Yeah.
again, because of, like, you ask if it's a tight-knit community. I would like to say it is, but also it's not, because I was just at the Costume Design Guild's holiday party last night, and it was so neat. I met so many costume designers I'd never met before, because how would I meet them? Because we're busy being costume designers on different projects. But I think when you're young and you're coming up through the ranks and you're working as a PA and an assistant designer, if you really work hard and put yourself out there, it's an opportunity to meet so many people that you just don't know how they're going to affect your life,
Yeah.
And I was designing independent films like Requiem for a Dream, and hiring like Anne Roth's team because they were on hiatus with her, and then they would say good
Cool.
things about me to her, and then she'd get a phone call, and then so it's just, you just never know who's going to
Yeah.
be a connective tissue to the next sort of part of your life. And I believe that we're all part of a greater consciousness, and that if we're all just kind and like open to helping each other, then you live with abundance, and abundance comes back to you.
Absolutely.
Will you two tell the story of how you met?
Yeah, it was super like random and simple, but I, for whatever reason, I just got upgraded to first class. I think it was because we were still flying at a time where it was like right after COVID. So everybody was getting upgraded, like you were just in that area. And I think we couldn't have been flying from Michigan. Was it Michigan?
I think it actually might have been Michigan.
Would you? Because
for two reasons. It could have either been because I live on a farm in central New York,
Yeah.
and that was a path
Okay,
that sometimes I would go through Detroit, or because my husband is a Michigander. So I
Oh,
could have
I
been
don't-
there with him and his family.
Okay.
So I bet you it was actually for
Yes.
fishing. Well, I was just going to say I must have been traveling for work because I was in first class.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yes,
we found
the
ourselves
work
there.
it's in my contract.
Very fancy, and we like that. Necessary. But we were, we didn't speak for most of the flight, but I get really anxious when I'm flying. And I think I said that to you. Sometimes when I'm anxious, I just need to talk to people while we're flying. And I love costumes. I love sewing. I love fashion. So speaking to you, I was just like, I have all of these questions that I know are naive, but I wanted to know like the psyche behind your choices and the direction that all of this is so fascinating to me. Like when I think costumes, I'm only thinking, what does a costume designer need to buy to dress somebody in? Then you have the next level of, okay, if you're going to build something, what fabrics are you using? But you're taking it to a whole different step of like, what other structures can you bring in? And I didn't know. I know that sounds crazy, but I guess I don't know who I thought was making Iron Man's costume, but like that's not just a t-shirt and jeans. Like that's like, how do you come up with that?
That I think is a really good question in terms of like their source material with these beloved comics and graphic novels for a lot of what you've worked on. And do you feel beholden to that?
That's a great question. I definitely feel beholden in the way that most of the projects that I work on tend to have a fan base in existence already. And so you really want to service the fans.
Yeah.
You really want to make sure. Oh, I just got chills. I always get chills when I say something that like I know is like, important. But it is important to honor the fans. And, a lot of these characters and their arcs they're really important to people, and not just like in a sort of throwaway, oh yeah, I read a book way, but in a way where, a lot of the characters that I have the good fortune of designing for TV and film are characters that have been sometimes people's only friend in hard times in their life. And I'm going to cry because I've been away from my family for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But, so I'm always emotional when I'm away from my family.
I'm always emotional
But-
in general.
But it's true, like I think that the world can be a really difficult place.
Oh,
And
God,
I think that growing up just can be a lonely thing. And even being adult can be a lonely thing. It can be a struggle just to be a human on earth. And I think that people can feel really seen when they see themselves in characters. And a lot of the characters that tend to be superheroes, especially, are characters that give people a safe place to feel acknowledged,
Yeah.
just in the comfort of their own bedroom.
Yeah.
And then there's of course the antithesis of that, like the characters on The Boys, who are irreverent as fuck, pardon my French, but we are talking about The Boys.
No, it's so real.
And they, give us a whole nother thing,
Yeah.
which is a cathartic way to release a lot of the stress and anxiety that we're all experiencing in
Yeah.
the world, especially with our political climate and the division, that we're all feeling. And so either way, there's a fan base that I need to serve as the costume designer who's taking canon, who's taking this existing, sort of character and then bringing them to life for our project. So, if anybody out there has watched any of my interviews, you've heard me say this probably in every single one, but it's the best way of putting it, which is I always try to make sure that I get enough of the DNA of those characters to infuse it into my version of them.
Okay, cool.
That the fan base that is existing can feel like they can sink their teeth in it and feel like we've done it justice.
How do you feel you do that? Like, especially because you were speaking from the beginning of you think of yourself as an artist. And I think for all of us, that can be a really hard thing to claim. When you feel like I am an artist and I'm going to approach this in a way that is very specific to me. like what my process is. I want to know what that first thought is for you. We're like,
Well, that's a
okay.
really good question too, actually. And I'm going to now meld those two answers
Yes.
together because my process is malleable because
Okay.
it has to be.
Yeah.
If I'm doing my job correctly, I think, then it's my job to actually be open to the possibility of what other people need. So like, for instance, when an actor comes in for a fitting, my job is to make them feel comfortable and make them feel a part of the process and make them like, I check my ego at the door while still coming in with self-confidence that I have a vision that is not strictly my vision. It's a collaborative vision that starts with the showrunner or the director, you know, that incorporates, you know, executive producers, studios, networks. Like I have a lot of folks who have opinions that I have to service. And so I always stay open to those notes while also having like a clear sort of vision of like just knowing when something feels right.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, I go really broad, right? So in the beginning, so as I'm trying to tap into the DNA of the character that exists, but also understanding that whatever project I'm working on has a very distinct visual voice of its own, while also understanding that each of these characters have their own unique sort of character development, who they are and why. You know, it's really an amalgam of so many different things. And I draw influences from, I mean, you name it. Like when I was doing Murderbot, there was an ice storm at my house in upstate New York. And I woke up in the morning and there were these amazing ice crystals that had formed on my deck. And I like quick ran out there and took pictures of them before the sun melted them.
Oh, I got the
Because
chills.
it looked like the nanotechnology that I wanted to have be a part of how Murderbot was created. And I wanted to show degradation because he was an older model. Sorry, I say he, but it's it. Because it's an older model and it needed to have intrinsic damage.
Yeah.
It needed to not feel new and fresh. And so those ice crystals, like I literally incorporated them into the finished product of the suit. So like there's different influences from different places, and my process is always different because of, you know, who the character is, what the project is, who the people are that I'm working with, who the actor is, and what the needs are. The basics start with lots of research, with having a great team. I'm only as good as the company I keep. My team knows me and trusts me in figuring out who all the people are that we're working with and what the needs are for us to make sure that we provide what all of those people need. So like every single minute of every single day, I'm demented about trying to actually stay focused on understanding each individual that I'm working with and what they need from me and my team to actually succeed in the specific task and the specific characters that we're creating.
I also want to pay you a compliment. I met you when I was working at Sony. I was an assistant working for the production executive there. And so that sort of entails like putting budgets together prior to when you're like kind of helping the showrunner with their hiring and all this stuff and how it reflects the budget. And I think that I was a sponge, you know, I was learning all this stuff for the first time. And something I really noticed about you was that you are like a fierce protector of your team, and you're really care about your collaborators in a way that I was really like, I was like, that I want to emulate that whenever I get into a position of power or where I get to hire people. And I think that's something that we get to do with Not Your Daddy's Films in a way of like how we build community. And you are really, really good at making the people around you feel important and utilized and protected. Like, I think that is unique and like shouldn't be unique, but like it was really cool to see that. And like, you know, a lot of this industry is male dominated and love men, but I think sometimes being a woman in that space and being able for you to be like, no, I need this budget and I need it for XYZ reason, and I'm going to show you exactly why, is so powerful. to be like, yeah, and then those people leave that meeting and they're like, yeah, give her what she needs, you know.
Well,
Hopefully.
thank you very much for that. That
Yeah.
really actually means a lot.
Good. Yeah, I hope so.
My dad raised me to take over his business, which clearly I didn't do, but he also raised me to, do what spoke to my heart and told me that if I was a floor sweeper and I was the best floor sweeper and it made me happy, then he'd support it. So he really raised me to be a business person. And I have that right brain, left brain,
can switch.
and I actually love it. Like I love what I do because I get to flex all of those muscles. I love that I get to be creative, but I also get to be a leader, and I lead with compassion and strength, because it's okay to be strong.
Yeah.
And command respect while also those same people that you're being strong and commanding respect from, you're strong for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I always joke with producers when they're like, oh man, it's going to cost that much. Well, listen, I'm fighting with you for you because I'm going to give you exactly what you need. I'm going to get you the best people to create the best product, and everybody's going to be happy, and it's going to be a delightful process to get there, because aren't we here to be how lucky are we that we get to do the stuff we do?
Yeah.
Let's celebrate that. Like, let's have each day be joyous. And honestly, if it's not, I'd rather just be home with my dog and cat and husband and son, not necessarily in that order, guys. And like rescuing wild animals, which is my long-term goals, like when I retire when I'm 90. I can't tell you how much that means to me that you've just paid me that compliment, because it's important, really important to me. And I like to lead by example and show people that it's actually possible. You can actually be nice and kind and supportive and strong. And, as I truly believe that as long as the argument that you're making makes sense and you can show people what you're asking for is actually because you want to protect their vision.
Yeah.
You can be responsible and say, I know it's going to be this and it won't be more. I was honored that in season 3 of The Boys, they made me an associate producer.
Yeah.
And I think that it's because of that. It's because they saw that I go outside the box and I do help them bring a lot of pieces of the puzzle together, in a compassionate way.
For so much of our audience are young, not young, but first-time filmmakers. And I'm curious what advice or, I don't know, opinions that you would have if you were to speak to a first-time director going into the process. What would you say is like, hey, I can help you. Like, let me do my job. It's really intimidating when you're directing a project for the first time and you're like, I need to make sure that I'm
working with department heads for the first time.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to overstep on your job, but at the same time I have a very clear vision and I want to make sure I'm doing my job as a director and directing everybody and not making anybody feel alone on the ship. Is there anything that you could say that you're like, I got this, or actually
it would
let's
be very
work
helpful,
together on this?
If you did X, or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
That's a really hard one to answer because I think that part of the beauty of filmmaking is how every single situation is different. I think that I would say something that my team probably is sick of hearing me say, but hopefully they understand it's because I love them so much. But I always say I'm only as good as the company I keep. I've already said it once or twice during our time together here today, and it's the truth. It's really important to surround yourself with people that you trust. And that could mean a number of things. It could be somebody that has oodles of experience. It could be somebody that has absolutely no experience. It just has to be the right person for the job. Staying open to the possibility of what other people can bring is really important. And I think that ultimately micromanaging is the devil. And I think that if you really take your time to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people, and then you have faith in those people, and or you spend time training up those people in a way where you know that they have the information that they can be useful in any situation, or a combination of all of the above, That would really be my biggest piece of advice to anyone, I think, is having the self-confidence to have faith in others and in yourself. And listen, like sometimes you're going to be a one-woman army, and that's okay too. And that's actually good to, be able to prove yourself to yourself. I mean, every once in a while, I've gotten a little bit spoiled now having like this fabulous team and, resources, and I get to do everything custom and it's great. And every once in a while I'll be like, you know what, let me go do something little just all by myself just to make sure I still know that I can do something a little bit little all by myself. I do try to do a lot of mentoring, and I speak to, students and things like that. I always say never underestimate the power of knowing how to work hard. As long as you have like the will and the drive and the intelligence, if you show up and you kind of can see the big picture and you're paying attention and you work your ass off and you check your ego at the door, then you're good. I mean, listen, I'm still going to be the one fixing the toilet if the toilet needs fixing, because I know how to fix the toilet and I'm the designer. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to use the toilet.
Yep.
So like if you're coming in as a PA, be ready for anything,
Yeah.
and be ready to be a PA for a while so that you can learn and grow and be a sponge.
Yeah.
Being a sponge is a really important thing.
Absolutely.
Totally. And I was thinking about how earlier you were mentioning like, oh, I took a hiatus and I was a chef or cook for a little bit. And is that something that you build into your career? Because sometimes I think, myself at least, I'll speak for myself, is like, oh, well, I have to go because I need to take every opportunity that comes. Otherwise, like, what if my career stalls out or something like that?
That's not something I have time to do anymore. I mean, thank you, universe, for keeping me busy. It's amazing how lucky I am that my team and I have been busy even through some trying times. But in early days, when I knew that I was figuring out my direction and I could go off the map for a minute or two, I thought it was important to have life experiences like that, to really not just go in one direction full force, but to, kind of take a beat and explore other avenues to make sure that the avenue I was on was the one I wanted to stay on. And I'm really glad I did, because I'm somebody who has just endless. My brother is like this too, and we talk about it all the time about, wouldn't it be great if we could just like clone ourselves and live like 3, 4, 5, 6 different lives, and I don't just mean the cloning of like one of me at home with my family, one of me here working, and one of me sleeping, but like also one of me being a dolphin trainer and being a chef and all of the things, all of the things that I actually have done, like had experience with. My aunt and uncle have a dolphin research center. I worked with the dolphins.
That's so cool.
I've been a cater chef. I've worked a line in a restaurant. All of the things that interested me, I wanted to experience.
Ooh. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like you're saying, don't just do one thing if you can. Do so much. I feel like the advice that I always would hear in theater school and film school was, if you can picture yourself doing anything else, go do that, because this industry is too hard.
Yep.
But I also think there's like, had you not done some of these other things, your career might be in a very different place, because you got to pull from all of these other places. It's like, if there are other things that you want to do, if you have the time, maybe don't walk away from your career. Make the time.
Make the time.
Even if it's a month or 3 months, I don't know, go do something. Yeah. And it will, I think it's fascinating that you studied sculpture and that led you to costumes.
Totally. It's totally relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, I use what I learned in school all the time. And, it's funny because when you just said a second ago that you would be told, if you can see yourself doing something else, do that. I misunderstood at first, and I thought the advice they were giving you was, go experience other things too.
Oh,
because it drives me crazy when young people are given the advice of, oh, well, don't follow your dream because it's hard. Oh, fuck that.
Yeah.
What
fuck that.
anything worth anything is going to be fucking hard.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, any relationship in life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Any career that you're passionate about is hard. Hard isn't bad.
You can't be afraid, like you said,
Like,
of hard work.
it's okay to
Yeah.
work hard.
for what you
Like,
want.
Yes.
because then the reward is that much
So
sweeter.
Great. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so that like bums me out because
Mhm.
people would say that to me when I was young too. They, oh, well, the film industry, it's so competitive, and I'm like, and your point?
Like,
Well,
Mhm.
so what do you want me to do?
And I'm going
Like-
to make myself more competitive then by learning how
Right.
to do other things so I can bring something new to the table that other people don't have.
But I also believe, and
Yeah.
it worked for me. It doesn't necessarily. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but
Yeah.
I do also believe in making the time to
Mhm.
have life experiences. Like when I was younger and single and not making a ton of money, what I would do is I would like design a movie and then I'd go travel for a month
Cool.
Mhm.
and I'd spend all my money.
Yeah.
And then
love
I'd do a
it.
movie
Yeah.
and then I'd go travel for a month and I'd spend all my money and get into more and more credit card debt. And one of my best friends, Julia, who's a doctor, she called me one time and she was like, listen, I'm really worried about your credit card debt. And I was like, okay, well, what do you have by way of student loans? And it was basically around the same amount, which
Mhm.
was a large number.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, so let's reframe your perspective on me.
Yes.
You're a doctor, those are your student loans. I'm a costume designer. I've traveled the world. I've immersed myself in other cultures.
Yeah.
Those are my student loans.
Oh, that I have the chills.
I
Because
love
that's,
Yeah.
you can't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? You have to put yourself out there. By the way, yes, I have paid them all off now. So,
Yay!
like
That's
you
amazing.
have to like
Mhm.
you have to overextend yourself sometimes.
Yes, be a student of
to
life.
have life experiences, because I'm here to tell you, and I know it's true, like time and money, they don't always come together.
No.
Like usually you have time when you're not making money,
Yeah.
Oh, I
that
have
was
or
me
you
this
have
year.
money
Yeah.
when you
Have a lot
and you
of
have
that.
no time.
And it does not feel good either when you
Mm-mm.
have a bunch of extra time but no money to spend and you're sitting around. That's not
Right.
going to be helpful for you in
No.
the long run.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when you just go out and take that risk and figure something out, even if you have to extend yourself in a way financially that maybe feels like it's not the smartest thing.
Right. It might feel irresponsible.
Yeah. But then all of a sudden, that's when you meet
Right.
somebody new.
That's what can
You
change
know?
your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so you mentioned that, is it your aunt and uncle have a dolphin?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's so
so
cool.
the dolphin thing made me think about the deep. So
The deep. God
So,
bless the deep.
on The Boys, we've got, if you haven't seen the show, it is a universe where superheroes are sort of like kind of our politicians and also our A-list celebrities. And there's a whole enterprise around how they are marketed to the world. And one of these characters, they all look very, very different. And that is in part to your wonderful expertise. And the Deep is a character that is like, has like a water, I forget what his power is really, but like
The deep can talk to the fish.
the fish. Yes.
And he is sort of like a torpedo in the water. He can-
Yes.
yeah.
And his costume is one of my personal favorites because it's like I can really like pick out the elements and the color that feel like part of the ocean in a way. And I think I'm like, want to phrase this properly because I wrote it down, I think, better than I'm saying it now. And like Homelander to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, almost emulates like a 1950s, at least at the beginning, like Superman-esque style thing, which is very ironic because he's probably the most evil character, in my opinion, on the show. And I'm curious, those characters have an evolution and so do the costumes. So with the Deep, how did you like pick the materials, and do you end up like, do you do like a rendering first? And like, are you also working with the production designer to make sure it's going to work in the sets that they're on? Or is it your own individual, like you're working at the same time? So how could you work together?
So the Deep is a great example of us departing almost entirely from the source material.
Okay, cool.
In the books, the Deep had a giant like helmet on, and we just couldn't really access who the character was. And I tried to play around with, you know, elements from that character in a literal way, and it just wasn't going to, like, the interpretation of it just wasn't translating to our project. So I did take some things, like he has a big chain around his neck and things like that, and so I actually created chain links in high density screen printing around our version of the Deep. But every aspect of the Deep's costume is customized. So he's the only character on the show who we actually built his suit out of wetsuit material for obvious reasons. But it all has a custom high density screen print on it that has like dimension to it. And so they're like little scales. And then we've got the, you know, the chain and all that stuff. This is what we really want to do. Women historically are always, you know, sort of hypersexualized. And so this is what I refer to as equal opportunity objectification.
I was going to ask you about this.
EOO.
EOO.
Yes. The Deep is our poster child for EOO.
Yeah, and that so works for the character because he's not the brightest bulb.
Not the brightest bulb.
I love that. I find that performance so funny and charming.
So, you know, there was actually this whole thing where we had Lil Deep. So Lil Deep was a sculpted penis.
Great.
That we actually dressed to the left and was part of his costume in the beginning. I mean, so I rendered him with Lil Deep. We created Lil Deep, and we shot a whole day with Lil Deep. And then we got some feedback.
Okay.
It was they missed him in the camera tests, but after the first day of shooting, we had to modify Lil Deep and just give him a cod piece. I know.
Okay.
But I really wanted to push the envelope with the you know,
and
EOO.
that's to show you can.
Well, I thought I could. But we still have some EOO going with equal opportunity.
Lil Deep can always be brought back.
Listen, we've got Lil Deep at the office if
He's
you ever
there.
want to meet him. He does still exist in the world.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't know if this is rumor or true, but when I was in the running for Gen V, I was told that the reason why the casting process was happening so early was because even though some of the characters were still being modified, they need to know who the actor is so you guys can start doing all of this, all the fittings before the writing's even done.
True story.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the way that my team and I have been working on these projects, which I'm really proud of actually, is, you know, I had seen costume designers struggle for so many years. They'd land these really cool, highly conceptual projects, and then they would be given like a normal timeline and budget, but they'd be asked to do like super suits. And so there's only so much you can do, you know, and they did a great job with what they could do in the time that they had allotted. But I got a call for Black Lightning. I had actually just finished the first installment, Welcome to the Jungle of Jumanji, which I'm working on the third installment now. And I had been working nonstop for like over a year, and I said to my family, "Don't worry, guys, I'm going to kick it at home now for a while. It's going to be great." And then the phone rang,
of course,
and they were looking for a film costume designer who could bring a cinematic scope to the first costumed African American superhero on TV. There had been African American superheroes, but they hadn't had super suits on TV.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I didn't either until I got this call, and I was like, can't say no to that. So that was Black Lightning, and I basically worked directly with the studio executive at Warner Brothers, who I adore, Antoinette Cadena, shout out.
Hey.
Powerful woman, really freaking smart cookie.
Cool.
Really fair, really hardcore, really like visionary.
Cool.
So she and I worked together to create how we've been working basically for the past 10 years. And then working with Adam at Sony, we adopted that as well. So basically, what it was allowing me as a specialty costume designer to have a little bit of a longer runway.
Yep.
And a little bit of a broader budget to be able to dial in cinematic supersuits on the characters.
What does that
in the
mean
shows.
to you, cinematic supersuit?
So what cinematic supersuits means to me is a certain pedigree, like a certain amount of detailing that sort of soup to nuts allows for a custom build.
Okay, cool.
When you have limited time and resources and budgets, you kind of have to modify existing things and have there be a proportion of customized elements. But for me, I'm able to sort of fully customize the super suits, and then the proportion that I bring in is more like in the sculpted elements and like the things that are like out of unconventional materials that we integrate into the suits themselves, but even the fabrics are customized. So it's just sort of elevating the aesthetic in a way where you just have a long enough runway where you actually can facilitate the build.
Yeah.
This might be a dumb question, but when it's a character that's in the same suit every day, like, do you have multiples, I presume, but also like are you cleaning that every day?
First of
Like,
all, there are no dumb questions because this is not an area that a lot of people like
know about.
So
Sure,
yeah, exactly. And those are all great questions. The answer is yes, there's always multiples.
Okay.
But like everything else, it's dictated by budget.
Sure.
So we oftentimes have less multiples than we wish we did.
Sure.
In a perfect world, we have at least 2 hero and 2 stunt because we've got you know a stunt person for each of our hero actors. I like to say 1 is none. Because you
what
know,
if it rips or something?
well, that's the thing. If you're in the midst of having, you know, an action sequence or even just walking down the hallway and something blows out, well, then if you don't have one that you can change into, it starts becoming prohibitively expensive to correct things in post with VFX. And the whole point of the way that my team and I work is that we build things that can be practically worn, and that limits the amount of VFX that you need to apply to the suit.
Which saves you money.
Which saves money. Exactly.
I would have assumed it would have been way more than 2. Wow.
Yeah. And then the other
like
question,
it to
seriously, is to be a costume designer, do you need to be able to draw?
That's a really good question.
I asked that on the plane.
It's, you know, that's funny. Yeah, I do not fancy myself a fine artist, as I mentioned earlier. What I can do is impart ideas, but I work with my concept artists who are freaking brilliant.
Okay, cool.
And actually Gina, who's my primary concept artist since the very first season of The Boys, she's so sweet. She's like, your markups are getting really good.
Hey.
And, you know, practice makes perfect. But I know she's right, not to sound like an asshole, but because when I do my markups, I use my iPad Pro.
Yeah.
You know, little plug. But I do them in such a way where I need to see how it's going to look. So I do it as like specific to how I want it to look as possible most of the time. And every once in a while I'll send it, and like one of my concept artists, like Jason, he'll be like, yeah, no, it's right there. And I'm like, no, dude, I did that. And he'll be like, oh, you know, so that's such a great tool, but there's no world in which I could ever actually like impart the visuals in the same way, or even close to the same way that my amazingly talented concept artists do.
Okay.
Like they bring the cool.
So there's concept artists. There's like for someone who's never worked with a full team before, who are the players?
Sure. There's lots.
Yeah.
But basically it starts with me having conversations with the showrunner or the director. I then start working with my concept artist and or concept artists, which usually it's plural, because usually we have a finite amount of time where we need to impart all of the, you know, visual information to get a rendering of a character to run up the flagpole for approvals with the executive producers, studio, and network. And I like to have my assistant costume designer and my visual administrator, which is something that I created,
Okay.
on
Love
with
that.
me as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Because and it all depends. Like if we're only working on one project, then I don't have that luxury. Like it's basically my concept artist and me. If we are already working on other projects as well, then we're able to work out scenarios where, you know, they'll work with me part-time on one job and part-time on the other job so that they can
Cool.
furnish support to both jobs.
Mhm.
So for instance, for a while I was doing a bunch of Warner Brothers shows and also a bunch of Sony shows.
Yeah.
So we would sort of split the team as it made sense.
Cool.
And so my visual administrator will help me do a bunch of research and
That's fun.
gather
Yeah.
all of our visuals in a digital way so that it's easily shared
Mhm.
with showrunners, studios, networks, other departments. And my assistant costume designer jumps in helping me with gathering, you know, sort of base materials, base
I see.
fabrics, base, you know, elements. But as we expand into the build, we have costumers who
Yeah.
help run around and do shopping for, you know, trims and findings and fabrics and shapes to try on for
Cool.
prototypes. I have manufacturing person, pattern makers, stitchers, specialty builders who integrate our customized, you know, fill in the blank sculpted elements that are customarily made from an outside vendor.
Cool.
And then textile artists who give paint jobs,
Yeah.
dye things if needed. And then a couple of outside vendors who work in lockstep with us who do our like high density screen printing, sublimation, laser cutting. Each character has a different sort of design philosophy and way that we build them.
Mhm.
So we can use myriad of techniques to create each and every one of them, and they can all be different from one another.
That's so cool.
Oh my God.
I know
This
it's a
is-
lot. Like I have, I think, maybe 40-ish people working on Jumanji right now.
Do you go to set yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
show, so it depends
Yeah.
on the project. Like
Yeah.
right now on Jumanji, it's a film, so I personally go and establish everything on set.
Cool.
For shows like The Boys or Vought Rising, which
Mhm.
we're shooting Vought Rising right now.
Yeah, I'm so
Very
excited.
So excited to
Yeah.
see
Oh
it.
my God, the scripts are so good. You're gonna die.
I can't wait.
But for Vought Rising, we work ahead of time getting
Right.
the costumes together, the super suits. Then we deliver the super suits. We establish the super suits in Toronto, and then we take off, and our local team sort of takes the ball. So we
Wow.
pass the
Oh.
baton. So I'm still a part of things,
Yeah.
but like I, for instance, had a few fittings that I attended virtually this week.
Yeah.
Jessie, who runs my team out there,
Cool.
you know, she and I will either FaceTime or Zoom. And then I'm a part of meetings virtually and things like that. I pop back and forth to establish if needed, but I luckily enough we established most of
Yeah.
the costumes right out of the gate on that
Yeah.
one. And then I try to go back for the wrap party.
Of
Girls
course.
gotta have fun.
Obviously.
Gotta celebrate.
Gotta celebrate.
Does it even feel exciting to you anymore?
Oh,
or do
hell
you
yeah.
ever,
Are you
or
kidding me?
for specialty costumes, but do you ever
No, like
just do
everything's
like,
exciting.
even if it's just like dressing us for an
Yes.
indie film?
Yes, because it's all about character development.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think that that's an important thing to mention because when it comes to specialty, because, you know, we all know it's character development when we're doing, you know, a period piece or when we're doing a contemporary piece. But I think that there's a misnomer where people think like, oh, well, the suit just defines the character. It's all about the suit. But I still look at each character as a person and or a robot, you know, or creature. And I still, you know, like look at Guillermo del Toro's movies, right?
Yeah.
Like he creates these monsters that are so complex and beautiful and layered, and you know, it's all about character.
Yes.
So like Frankenstein, like yeah, amazing prosthetics, but like whoa, the acting, like that was all about his soul.
Yeah.
You know, so Likewise, when I do a character like
Yeah.
Homelander, Ant is an incredible actor. I mean, he's like a
Incredible.
super chill Kiwi surfer dude in real life. And then he like gets into his, muscle suit because his suit is built, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
in a very kind of classic sort of Superman-esque
Yeah.
way, where we actually did a scan of his body, created a body form, and then we sculpted his muscles conventionally with clay over that body, and then created latex muscles out of those muscles that we then attached, like glued and sewed his stretch gabardine suit fabric after we had NC screen printed it with the repeat of Eagles over top of it, so that it's like it's the easiest costume to put
I
on.
was literally
Actually,
like,
'cause
this is a dream.
He's like walking around in his like Under Armour, and then he just goes and we zip him in, and there's his muscles, and he's ready to roll.
I want that just for everyday life.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's and then we get the paint job to enhance the muscles, the sculptural paint job I call it, which is like chef's kiss. But like that character was created that way. Because he had to be.
Yes,
because he had we had to see all of his rippling muscles. It had to be that he walked into a room and there was no mistaking who the baddest ass in the room was.
Yep.
Each, like we developed him that way, but then like the Deep, he's doesn't have any sleeves. Like that was all about him having to actually bring the guns, which
and
he
vanity
did.
in many ways. Like his character is very vain.
Yeah, and then
A-Train, he was like athletic. He had to feel like he was the embodiment of like like he also had to be aerodynamic.
Yes.
So we really
A-Train is a character who's got super speed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
so we had to think about what that meant as we were developing that character.
And I think that also emphasizes like when a character is going through, like A-Train has this moment where he's like not fast. He's dealing with some stuff that, no spoilers, even though the show's been out for a while. And I think then there's this cool layer to the metaphor or like the emotional storytelling of like what happens when this like iconic character doesn't have the thing that makes them them. And then you have the contrast of like this suit that screams to the world of like their prowess, and it's like it's very cool. It's very nice to have that layer. Because the holidays are approaching and I watch Elf every year. Yay. You were the fantastic costume designer on that film, and can you tell us how you guys came up with Will Ferrell's outfit?
I sure can. So yes, it's Elf season.
It's Elf season.
It's so sweet. I love it. When we were making Elf, we set out to make a Christmas classic, and I think we did all right.
You did.
Yeah,
I think you guys did that.
We might have nailed it.
I think it happened.
When the holidays come around, there's at least a half a dozen people who text me a screenshot of my name and go, "What?" Like they didn't know I designed Elf.
No way.
I think I did that when we were reaching out about this. I was like, wait, how did I not know that?
Yeah, I'm working with an actress right now, Brittany O'Grady, who I adore, and she just sent me like LJ, what? That will continue to be sort of a lifelong feather in the cap, just like Will's feather in his little elf cap.
That little suit, it's just so cute.
So sweet. Well, Jon Favreau and I, one of the reasons why I've always loved working with Favs is because he and I are contemporaries, and we're both from the East Coast. So we have a lot, we're the same age. So we grew up with a lot of the same
reference points.
Like cultural references. And we have a shorthand in communicating. And actually, I mean, it's been a minute since we've worked together, but I remember back in the day when we were working together all the time, and we'd have a conversation and it'd be like, the thing and the thing. Yeah, the thing. And I'd be like, all right. And people would be like, what the fuck did you guys just say to each other? Like,
you didn't hear that?
Like, we know what we were saying, He really wanted to tap into the Rankin Bass claymation,
I love those
Christmas
too.
Specials from when we were kids.
Okay.
And there's something about those that like, there's just there's just this innocence,
Yeah.
you know, and it's that same innocence that Will brought to the character.
I
that
watched those every year because
Yeah,
they were
same,
on
my
cable, and
parents,
I
yeah.
loved it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So we were very much influenced by
Yeah.
that visual. But then, of course,
Interesting.
as we have discussed, it's like infusing the DNA from that while then also sort of elevating it,
Yeah.
bringing it into the real world, like grounding it, giving it some gravitas, and like finding sort of the focal points that are specific to like the world we're building and the characters we're
Yeah.
creating. So one of the things that was important to me was to like show that in the North Pole, you know, Santa and the elves service the world.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to sort of pigeonhole them into having there be just like any one cultural reference point.
Yeah, cool.
So I did a lot of research on, you know, different cultures of the world, ancient cultures, folkloric things, you know, like iconography from different, you know, sort of places. And actually Rusty, who was our production designer, he was amazing. And he had this vast library he had created that I would go poke around in, as well as going to like the New York Library and the, you know, back in the days when you'd go to the picture collection instead of just going online. And so all of the embroidery on Buddy the Elf and all of the elves, I actually hand drew myself.
Wow.
So those
Wow.
are all, you know, from you know, like Nordic and Aztec and, you know, like you name it,
Cool,
like
yeah.
no stone was left unturned in terms of, you know, like, and it's actually really interesting because when it comes to Christmas and winter, the iconography, like when you distill it down and you get into more of the like line drawing stuff, like there's a lot of crossover from all places of the world. So that was really kind of a neat thing to be able to tap into.
Love that.
And then I annoyingly made rules like there's no Velcro in the North Pole. You know, although there was Velcro on the belts, but that was actually hilarious because I had different people building the belts than the elf costumes.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so you put the male Velcro on that and you put the female Velcro on that so it'll work. And I drew diagrams and I wrote it out, and everybody put female Velcro on because nobody wanted to mess up their. And I'm like, you guys, it doesn't work that way.
Oh no.
There were so many little stories like that, you know, when you're building the elf world. But basically that sort of was our jumping off point. And then it was really cute because Bob Newhart, rest his soul, he actually asked for me to send his tights to him.
Wait,
because
that's
he
amazing.
played Papa Elf. He wanted to have a little
Yeah.
tights fitting for himself, which bless. Can you blame a guy?
Like,
No.
We had a fitting for Will, and I've, you know, again, anybody that's watched interviews with me, they've already heard this story too, but we did his fitting where the team went out and got, you know, all kinds of underpinnings to try on under his tights because, you know, he's a grown-ass man who is going to be 40 feet tall on a giant screen in front of lots of children.
Yep.
Wearing a cutaway coat
Right.
and tights. So we need to make sure that we, you know,
things were kept in.
things were supported.
Yeah.
And so there was this one thing that we got, and it was called an andiamo. And it was an Italian biking underwear that you wear when you're biking to have like a little extra padding in that zone.
Oh.
And we thought, oh, this might be really like great.
Yeah.
Except for we put the andiamo on him and he got a camel toe.
Oh.
So it's kind of reverse.
Yeah.
Wasn't he
so
was
funny.
going too far in the other direction.
Yeah.
But every day he'd say to Pam, our set costumer, bring me my andiamo. You know? So that was the little catchphrase for that. But yeah,
That's
no,
so
it was a lot of fun. I mean, we did the first part of our shooting for Elf was in New York City.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Vancouver. And so I utilized my assistant costume designer, Marcus Henry, who is one of my bestest friends in the whole wide world, who did not get credited on the movie. So yes, Marcus Henry, assistant costume designer on Elf. Everybody remember that. He did a lot of work on Broadway as well. And now he's a
amazing.
professor to some very
And that has to be functional, that clothing. Yeah.
well, totally.
Yeah.
And he now teaches costume design and production design in Colorado University.
Very
of,
cool.
Colorado Boulder to some very lucky students. But he was an endless resource for just having the best ins with all of the most amazing people in New York City. So Corelli
Yeah.
Costumes built all of Buddy the Elves costumes. They
So
had in-house
cool.
milliner,
Mhm.
did beautiful work. So everything was done by like, you know, little
Yeah.
nonas were like doing the embroidery. So everything was created by these like amazing artisans. And
Mhm.
it's a dying craft, a lot of those things. In fact, a lot of those places
Mhm.
are no longer a business. So it makes me feel like really happy that every year we're able to celebrate by seeing the work
Yeah.
that those people did. We,
Yeah.
you know, we wanted the elf costumes to feel like they existed in the North Pole.
Mhm.
So I wanted it to look like it was boiled wool.
Yeah, it
or
did. It
like
does,
boucle
yeah.
wool, but
Yeah.
we also didn't want him to be dying or the
Dying.
elves to be dying.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, speaking of dying of fabrics,
Yeah.
to make them appear like they
Yeah.
were those fabrics
Yeah. How
visually
cool.
while also still being comfortable to wear.
I
Thank you.
am just like, I love art history. It excites me more than anything. It's one thing to see what somebody made, but to sit there and think about what you thought about to get there. I can't wait to watch the movie again this year
Yeah.
and notice things that, like, I think part of the beauty of art is when it's done right, certain things maybe aren't supposed to be noticed because it
Yes.
just, it's there. It's not distracting,
Yeah.
but it just makes the world feel full.
I love that.
But then being able to see those details and be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like that, like you put so much time to making that, just that detail right
Yeah.
there. When that movie is so full in so many other aspects, it's like just really fascinating.
Yeah.
To
Well,
hear
I
you
think
talk
that
about.
if you make the right choices, they should be organic and not noticed, but
Mhm.
they also should elevate the experience and the
Yes.
audience should feel it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like there's period construction with fiddleback seams on the jacket,
Mhm.
and when I said I didn't allow Velcro, like it's literally like hook and eye closures all the way down the jackets.
Mhm.
Took an extra minute, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
You know,
Should we do
I think
Unfortunately.
we could talk. You've just such a interesting career. Like
Yeah.
it's so fun to talk to you about all these different aspects, but unfortunately our time is out.
and people aren't going to
so-
watch us for 4 hours.
I would.
So how do you feel about ending with our hot takes?
Sure. What's the hot takes again? Remind me.
So a hot take is essentially like a film related hot take. Someone you think should have a bigger career than they do or be known
Oh.
more, or like something that bothers you. Like I hate real dinner food in a movie theater, like a public movie theater.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm pretty easygoing.
So it can be super
It is,
positive.
yeah.
I think for me, I can start off, and I wanted to do this one with you because I'm curious about your opinion.
Okay.
Is watching, I think, TV more than films because there's often less time. I really notice when it feels like clothing isn't lived in. When and my hot take is, please make it feel like your character took it out of their closet rather than out of like this right off the rack on the store from the store.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's something that maybe is because I work in this industry, but I notice it so much where
Takes
I'm,
you out of the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, did they go shopping every week?
Yeah.
Like, why do they never repeat a jacket, you know? and I obviously it depends on what the story is, but that's something that really gets under my skin.
Yes. I am with you on that one.
Okay, cool.
Even back in the day when I had no money and no time,
Mm-hmm.
I myself would sand the collars and
Is that what you
run
do? You like
newspaper over the shoes.
literally like distress it.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes.
Do you like try to crumple it anyway or something?
Yeah.
Sometimes
There's myriad of.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I'll notice the dirt and I'll
Yes.
notice the distressing, but something about it is it's art. It's I don't want to say it's not artful. It's concentrated and specific rather than messy. Sometimes I always want to be like, let somebody's kid come in here
Yeah.
and have the best day of their lives and just make it
Yeah.
filthy. Let
Yeah.
them crumble it. Let them just like
The
take
best day
some
of their
scissors. Yeah, just destroy it.
It is an
now.
art. I mean,
Yeah.
like when I call my textile artists textile artists.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is not the actual technical term that's used in Toronto. They call them breakdown artists, which I think is unfair. I mean, I think that's how their job started,
Mhm.
is making things look worn and aged.
Mm-hmm.
But especially when they work for projects like mine,
Mhm.
like they're artists.
Oh,
They're like
100%.
elevating and
Yeah.
doing things that are more than just making them look aged, though that itself is a real
Skill.
What's your hot take?
I just I love Jake Gyllenhaal so much. And not
Okay.
just because he's attractive. I'm engaged. I swear I'm not hitting on you. But I think he should have a much bigger career.
Much bigger. He's got a big career.
I don't
Got a pretty
understand.
big career.
But here's the thing.
What
For
would you
me,
like to
he's
see him
like
do?
so many things. I just feel like I don't understand how he's not nominated. He's not an actor who's nominated for an Oscar every other year. Like, he has such a big career and everybody knows who he is. But even still, for whatever reason, I still actually feel like he's a bit.
You're Team Jake.
I'm Team Jake. He's either underestimated or he chooses to participate in projects that he's very passionate about the character but don't often get as much.
It's true. He
attention.
does make choices that are specific.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Me too.
Yes.
And it's probably part of what you appreciate too.
Yep.
But I'm here to say that it's not about just the nominations. It's about
100%.
the journey.
Yeah.
You know, I used to get heady about that. You know, I'd be like, oh, why don't I ever get nominated? And I'm like, who cares?
Yeah. No, 100%.
Love what I
That's
do.
a hot take, honestly.
You
Yeah.
know?
'Cause-
Yeah, okay, great. No,
because
then
that,
let's
you know,
have that
it
be my hot
is.
take.
We're
Yeah.
entering award season. How do you feel about
Well,
awards?
first of all,
Yeah.
I'm as you mentioned in my very wordy
No, it was a beautifully
bio. I do vote for the Oscars. I
Yeah.
also vote for the Emmys, and I really take it seriously. I've actually watched 4.5 films already this weekend.
Hey.
I really take it seriously. I know how important
Mm-hmm.
it is to people to be honored and to have their peers nominate them, you know, for awards. And I used to, you know, who doesn't? I used to have the daydreams of what would I wear when I get nominated for an Oscar? What would my speech be? And, you know, all the things. And that's all great. And then, you know, I've been nominated a couple times for a Costume Design Guild Award, haven't won. And then I just sort of like shifted the perspective, you know. I had sort of a paradigm shift where even though I spend a lot of time, because I really take it seriously and I really vote with my heart and my soul in terms of, you know, what I think should be recognized for Oscars and Emmys. Some part of it I think is a popularity contest.
100%.
And some part of it I think is also just like the stars aligning. And really at the end of the day, I get fed so much by my career and the good fortune I have of the projects that I work on with the people that I work with, that like every day I feel like I'm winning an award.
Yeah.
And so like I really realized that, you know, and I sort of went like, it was an aha moment for me. And I guess that's my hot take, which is that like anybody that feels like they would love to win an award, I would invite you to recognize that every day that we show up in this industry with the job that we do, we're like being handed a huge award right there.
Yeah.
You know, every time a director tells me something was a triumph, like Jake Kasdan just did a few weeks ago at a camera test, like that's so meaningful to me because it's like those attaboys, like knowing that it's a job well done and that you're reaching the people who have hired you to, you know, help them realize their vision, and then in turn an audience who, you know, is moved in some way by the work that you're doing. I guess I'll bookend with the world is a tough place, and you know, what we are tasked with. Like every once in a while I'm hard on myself. I'm like, oh, I should be like, you know, like digging wells, you know, or like, you know, like going out there and like, you know, really trying to influence positive change. And then I realized like, well, maybe, you know, and I mean, maybe this sounds trite, but I actually think it's true. Like maybe I am actually inspiring positive change just by like showing up and like helping create these characters and tell these stories that actually help people unwind. I guess that's my hot take, is like when we look at the work that we do and just like who we are as human beings on earth, like it shouldn't necessarily be about winning a medal, though that would be lovely, or winning an award, though I would welcome one.
You're not saying no.
With open arms.
No.
But like I just feel really fortunate, and I hope that other people do too, that we can just, you know, actually be here for each other.
Yes.
And like, to me, that is the most important thing.
I am so moved and so inspired by somebody who's like, I don't need to get this quick. I want to know every little bit of information, whether it be acting or directing or costumes, producing, whatever it is. Somebody who's like, I like to know everything about my job.
Yeah.
I like to know everything about what I'm doing. I like to work hard because it's not work. It's like what makes it fun.
Exactly.
Like I like the specificity.
Yeah, the process is the journey is
that's
the
the
reward.
win. Absolutely.
It's a beautiful note to end on. Well, everyone can obviously see your work in ELF and all these fantastic shows, but is there somewhere you want to direct them to see your work or your social media or whatever?
Oh, yeah. So my 18-year-old Seth is my social media manager.
Hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, except for I'm the worst because I never tell him to do anything. So even though I have like a pretty good base of people, sorry guys that I almost never update it, but it's team LJ Super Suits.
Cool.
Because I didn't want to be just about me. It's about my team.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, obviously we've been talking a lot about The Boys because we have a connection to that. Vought Rising. Oh, they just announced actually that The Boys is going to be coming out in April.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Our 5th and final season.
Okay.
And it's going to knock your freaking socks off.
Oh my gosh. What a
If you thought we were crazy before, just wait. And then Vought Rising, I just can't wait for the world to see our origin story. It's going to be killer.
Oh my God.
They announced season 2 of Murderbot, which I'm a super fan of Murderbot.
So
like
good.
if I could create a show, like that would be my favorite show. It has like, I know that I have vested interest, but actually I'm also a super fan, as is Carrie Grace, who's my friend and is the costume designer on the show. So I did the specialty and she did the costumes. Stay tuned for the 3rd and final installment of Jumanji.
Yeah.
And thanks for, just thanks.
Thank you for talking to us. We're so grateful.
We're
You
so
guys,
fun.
me too.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Daddy Dailies Pod and Not Your Daddy's Films at NYD Films.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Daddy Dailies is a production of Not Your Daddy's Films, a social impact organization dedicated to educating and empowering women and non-binary creatives in TV and film. If you like what you heard today, click subscribe and leave us a positive review. If you want more Daddy episode insights and to be the first to know about in-person events, follow Daddy Dailies Pod and NYD Films on Instagram and TikTok. Daddy Dailies is edited by Vika Stubblebine and Carly Tamarin. See you next time, Daddy.